話を伺っていきたいと思います。This training has been very meaningful to me. I really learned a lot.
It was a very productive experience for me. I have significantly improved my knowledge and skills in the field of disarmament and non-proliferation.
positions of the nuclear weapon states, umbrella states, and non-states, and the session with the Hibakusha was very inspiring.
I joined as a beginner, but later on at the end of the program I realized I was able to excel my knowledge in the area. My most preferred subject or the area is consensus building and negotiation.
What I really found interesting about this course is how it showed us the two sides of Hiroshima. One is the devastation and the effects of nuclear weapons to the community and its people. And two is the message of hope and peace that the survivors and the new generation help spread through disarmament efforts.
The platform used was very effective during the lessons and discussions.
The topic that I like the most is a virtual visit to Hiroshima. Through this topic, I knew more about the beautiful and peaceful Hiroshima city recovered and developed after the atomic bomb is shattered.
一番目指す点っていうのはどうやって私たちが同じ船に乗っている仲間だっていうことを意識するかってことにメッセージを出しています。スポーツっていうのは国籍やいろんな違いを乗り越えて私たちを一つの力のもとにまとめてくれるんじゃないかなと思っています。ですからユニタールさんの活動にとても共感をして私もスポーツを通じて何かしら世界の平和に貢献できないかと思って参加をしました。おばあちゃんが原爆に遭っているというのもあって平和に関するいろんな教育を受けてきました。違いがあるんだけどそれをちゃんと考えて工夫した上で乗り越えていくというのが平和に至る一番大事な道じゃないかと思っています。ですから私は平和というのは完成するものじゃなくてずっとそこに向けて私たちが話し合いながら、時々ぶつかりながら工夫をし合って協力していくもんじゃないかと思っています。広島という街が世界に伝えられるメッセージっていうのはたくさんあると思いますし、もっと可能性があると思うので、ユニタルが広島という街に拠点を置きながら世界中にメッセージを伝えて、また広島を通じて日本の若い世代、いろんな方たちにメッセージを伝えているのはとても大事なことじゃないかと思います。本当にこのユニタルの活動に共感して支援してくださっている皆さんに感謝をします。さまざまな人に協力をしていただきたいなと思います。また協力の仕方もいろいろありますから、私は主には発信、それから若い世代の人との対話で協力をしていこうと思いますけども、いろんな方がいろんな形でこのユニタールが実現しようと思っている世界を応援してもらえるといいなと思います。
Recording in progress.
Bus. Bus.
Peace.
Bus.
Peace.
Bus.
Peace.
Bus. Bus. 和平，和平。Lape. Kimia. Tita Lala.
Bus. سلام لكل العالم. سلام لكل العالم.
سلام لكل العالم.
سلام. Shanti. Shalom.
Thank you very much for waiting. We will start the session shortly. For English speakers, please select the language from the button at the right bottom. Select English and mute original audio. 皆様、本日はご参加いただきありがとうございます。まもなくセッションを開始いたします。同時通訳の設定は右下の通訳ボタンより日本語を選択し、オリジナル音声をミュートにしてください。パネリストへのご質問を英語と日本語両方で受け付けます。Q&A より質問を書き込んでください。時間の都合により、すべての質問にお答えすることができない場合があります。ご了承ください。 Thank you very much for waiting. We will start the session shortly. For English speakers, please select the language from the button at right bottom. Select English and mute original audio. 皆様、本日はご参加いただきありがとうございます。まもなくセッションを開始いたします。同時通訳の設定は右下の通訳ボタンより日本語を選択し、オリジナル音声をミュートにしてください。パネリストへのご質問を英語、日本語の両方で受け付けます。Q&A より質問を書き込んでください。時間の都合によりすべての質問にお答えすることができない場合があります。ご了承ください。
I learned a lot about the various positions of the nuclear weapon states, umbrella states, and non-states, and the session with the Hibakusha was very inspiring.
皆様、こんばんは。
Hello, everybody. We are going to start session number 3, Youth Movement for Nuclear Disarmament. The session is shared by two UNITAR interns, myself, Kazuma Sugano, and Ms. Riko Akai. I would like to ask for your kind support. Please allow us to introduce ourselves. I am Kazuma Sugano, UNITAR intern. My grandfather, who lost his house during the Tokyo air raid, talked about his experience that made me interested in peace and war. And I thought that I want to be a person who can make a contribution to peace. In order to find my approach to peace, I decided to come to Hiroshima to study at the graduate school of Hiroshima University. I joined Hiroshima Peace Coexistence Leadership Program and the Hiroshima Prefecture's online education program, thinking about peace from Hiroshima and various opportunities. I'm at the graduate school of Hiroshima University. My research topic is peace building of Hiroshima, post-war Hiroshima. I am Riko Akai, also UNITAR intern. I'm a graduate school student, and my research topic is conflict resolution of Kashmir, which is in between India and Pakistan. I was born and brought up in Hiroshima, so I had many opportunities to think about the peace. I've listened to Hibakusha and those who experienced war and those who were traumatized by conflicts. And I listen to them, I put them into pictures. And by using SNS, I share my pictures as a kind of illustrated diary, hoping that those who look at my picture would have an opportunity to use their imagination to think about the meaning of peace in their daily lives. And next, we would like to talk about the purpose of this session. This is August the 6th, the day of A bombing. And taking this opportunity, we wanted to create a forum where youth can exchange ideas based on their diverse activities, hoping that the youth will be interested in disarmament and the nuclear issues and think that these are their own issues. We want to know the nexus between the disarmament and the other issues, hoping that we can bring in new ideas for this difficult field of disarmament. I'd like to talk about how we are going to proceed in the session. The session is divided into two sections. In the first section, we hear from Mr. Tamesue for his lecture, and then we are going to have a dialogue with Mr. Tamesue. We have time for Q&A, so if you have any question to Mr. Tamesue during the lecture, during our dialogue, please put your question in the chat box. In the second part, we've invited youth act in various fields. They're going to share their activities and we're going to have a panel discussion. Again, we accept questions to panelists. During the presentation and panel discussion, please put your question in the chat box. We have a support from an organization named UNITE. I'm going to ask a UNITE representative to introduce themselves. Thank you. We are from a student organization named UNITE. We started our activity this year. We are a partner organization for UNITAR Association, and we have 7 university students. And all of these are former UNITAR youth ambassadors. We are 7 members. To realize world peace, we wanted to share our values with youth around the world, hoping that we can start a collaboration. For that purpose, we've exchanged with Okinawa residents or the students coming to Hiroshima Prefecture for the school trips. And also we are helping UNITAR youth ambassadors as mentors so that we can increase our relationship with people from different parts of Japan, also with other young people. I sincerely hope that you have some interest in UNITE, and please contact us. We are happy to work with all of you. We are very happy to be playing a supporting role for this symposium. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, UNITE members, and please continue to give us the support for this session. Without further ado, let us move to the presentation by Tamesue-san. The theme of the presentation, August 6th and sustainability. Tamesue-san, please begin your presentation. Do you hear my voice? Is my voice okay? Yes, we can hear you. I'm giving the light to my face so that you'll be able to see my face clearly. So my name is Tamesue. There are many people who are meeting me for the first time. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. And they're often the case I talk about the sports. My first experience to talk about this theme, I'm a bit nervous, but I will do my best. I'm from Hiroshima, and I was born in 1978. I lived in Hiroshima up until 18 years old. So during my childhood, I received the education as you have received, and atomic bomb education was given to me. So in the middle of the summer, the peace education given, and I watched the movies at the Peace Memorial Museum. When I was in primary school, it was cumbersome for me to visit school in the summer vacation because there was so much to be learned about the atomic bomb. And I was wondering as a child to what extent I was able to consume them, digest them. But today, and so today, so August 6th and sustainability is the theme of this presentation. I would like to talk about my own story And let's think about what is needed to be done. I received education in Hiroshima. I received a lot of experience during the childhood. When I was in primary school, I wrote an essay. The essay was titled as Human Being. What I wrote in the essay is that I have heard so much stories from Hibakusha, and Hiroshima is the place where the atomic bomb dropped. There are so many people suffered from it, and the USA. One time I have heard the story of American people. They have their own family, and they were ordered to drop atomic bomb. If those people, American people and the USA, Japanese people, if they switch their destiny or lives, what would they have done? Because those who are dropping the atomic bomb, they are the human being, and those who are receiving or affected by the atomic bomb, they are also the human being. And so this is one area that I've been always interested in. Even if I am retired from the athletic sports activities, what is the existence of the human being? It is a fundamental question I always had in my life. There is no such difference when it comes to the human beings. If we can share the common senses, say that we are all, after all, the human beings. There was a person called Samuel Huntington, The Conflict of the Civilization. He wrote in his book, Who Am I? This is about identity. If you are to identify yourself, you ought to find the differences of something. Rather than creating other people, is it possible to be able to recognize yourself as your own? In other words, if you are alone living in the island, whether you are the high prostitute, you have a low posture or a high posture, we don't know that. We cannot come to the judgment because there is no other people living there to compare. If you find some differences compared to the people surrounding you, if that differences is too big, then you may attack that person and not feeling any suffering or the pain. But if you feel that you are so close to others, again, it's very difficult the world to live in because there is no differences at all and don't know how to live as yourself. In terms of a peace building, we have to change ourselves, and we also say that everybody should learn. Those who are attending this session, you may know this, but there is a test of Milgram. You may be familiar with this experiment. If an authoritarian command comes to you, all of our people, it was a test with the electrical shock, and you end up following that. Another test by the Milgram, something that we can learn from it, is that in the process of attacking others, if you are to do it yourself, you start to get the sense of guilty. But if that process are divided into different people, the sense of guilt is going to be diluted, and then people end up doing extraordinary, terrible things. And of course, human society is becoming more and more complicated. And so, what you are doing, what does that mean to the whole? Sometimes you do things not knowing what that would impact to the total picture. So, the vicious people doing bad things, that's not usually the case. It's just whatever you do is part of things. And if you are to thoroughly implement and execute it, and at the end of the day, the whole picture gives the huge the problem. So if you were to create a sustainable society, or if you are to create peace, many people creating the complicated society, and from each individual role, not able to see the entire picture, that I think itself is the problem. It is a one characteristics, but it can be a quite big problem because no one are able to see the entire picture. Each individual are so indulged or engaged in doing something so small, little small, not knowing that how that would impact to the total picture. And in that piece of work, you might think you are doing some justice or the right things. So if you are to support the individual athletes, and then nutrition comes up with a wonderful nutrition. Strength trainer, on the other hand, come up with the complete training. And then there's another individual mental trainer give the mental training, and the techno trainer would do just the perfect support. But that individual need to have a good balance. But if there is nobody giving the good balance, even though that all of the pieces are perfect, the athletes may not be able to perform well enough. I think same thing can be said for the global perspectives. Maybe no one can do this, but individual optimum something are trying to be found. But how overall optimization? Sometimes we miss that. So for the peace as well, each one of us has some says. And in human history, in a long history, there are so many conflicts, fights, people hated each other. But on an individual level, in the community that you belong to, in your background, sometimes the nationality, those memories are being accumulated, and that accumulated memories are part of you, part of forming you. So this is the memories coming from the past, the generations are accumulated and connected. So when it comes to the all the individuals on the globe, somehow we attack others, and we are being attacked by others. So how are we going to stop that? As the victims, how are we going to get the forgiveness? And if you are to hurt others, how can that be reduce the sense of the guilt, maybe? So now talking about creating the sustainable environment to realize the peace, I think the words, phrases itself is so beautiful, but if you are to realize it, it requires complicated processes. You have to really look into the past history. It was intertwined, the process, and you have to step by step loosen all of that. But there is still hope after all. Hope can be found from the younger generation because younger generations are having the fresh notion, they have a fresh view of the societies. So young people are learning many things, and in the long run, the globe, the earth is going to go into the better environment. How the younger people can become aware and come up with the implementation. I'm not trying to push the young people. Our generation, of course, we have our own responsibility, the roles to be played. But if we have the hopes and continue the dialogues, I think that the solution may take place. So, what is peace? Since I was born in Hiroshima, this is a question always in my life. But so far, uh, maybe humankind will never come to the state of a complete peace. But we are able to try to come closer to that. And by making that effort, maybe it is a transient process, we'll be able to realize the peace. There is no such thing that the peace is being built and everything is okay. We need to make an effort, and as a total balance, we need to keep or maintain the peace. And that, I think, is the most important things that we need to do. I think time has passed, so I would like to end my presentation, the story, and then we can have a panel discussion later. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. It seems you have written the essay when you were in grade school. I wanted to read that because there is someone next to me. I am here. There has to be the dialogue between us. I am very much impressed, and also I was interested in what you have done when you were small. Thank you very much. From now on, let's start the dialogue amongst us. In this dialogue, Akai-san and I are acting as the representative of the young people. On behalf of the other young people, I would like to shoot you with the questions. My first question is, during the lecture, you talked about the contemporary young people that is related to today's young people. In October, Nikkei newspaper says there are increasing number of the young people who try to get the donation or get the signature because they recognize as a member of the community and the society in the COVID-19. And there are a lot of students who are seeking for a job who can find the value in social significance working and getting a job. There are a lot of young people who are able to take an action to the community and society. What is your impression of today's young people? In comparison with what we used to be, you guys are terribly wonderful. It seems, based on my analysis, materialistic things, they are gone. There was the advent of internet together with the other technologies. So there is not much persistence or desires to try to get something materialistic, but rather you wanted to have the connection with the other people surrounding you. The value sets are changing, probably because of the existence of the internet. There were changes in the value set. Another point is global issues are now coming onto the surface and visibility is high. We discussed what was wrong with Japan when we were young, but never the position in the international society. And well, we thought there were a lot of people who are suffering from poverty and have difficulties in making their living. We are lacking in the consciousness of looking at the international society. But having said that, the Japanese young people, in comparison with the global young people, not as much as they do young people in Japan, are lacking rather in having the interest in what's going on in overseas. Thank you very much, Mr. Tamesue. As you rightly said, with the advent of the internet, they are utilizing the internet and face with the global issues. There are increasing number of the young people of such. Those people would come onto the stage. I'm very much looking forward to seeing them. Next question. To me, as I said before, I wanted to send the testimony and recollection and memories of people in Hiroshima by way of the pictures. And I was interested in what was going on in the international community, but I was not able to feel strongly whether my message is accepted and heard by the other people. In order for you to live, you do have your own feelings, and the way you are living is directly linked with your feelings. In order for young people to send their messages to the society and to become influential, what are the things young people need to learn? Yes. Technically speaking, maybe they need to learn how they are able to communicate in terms of, for example, marketing. But just to touch the essence of that, you need to make a confession. You need to tell the truth, the bottom of your hearts. You need to communicate and confess your true feelings. That can only influence and shock the other people. You might think this is paradoxical. You try to communicate because you want to be influential. That is not the case. You are not sure whether you can be influential, but if you are able to speak out what you have in your mind, then you can be kindly accepted and supported. This so happens. You try not to aim any target, but coincidentally, as you make efforts, you'll be able to capture them. In my life, at one time, we wanted to be influential, and I was interested because I was an athlete. And unlike the baseball player, we were not influential. And because of the problem on my part, I was not able to communicate myself. But my own questions, those are something I started to share with the other people. I do not have to be influential to the others, but some of the questions or some of difficulties I wanted to share with the other people. They listened to me because the bottom of the heart and what is felt in the heart can be shared, it can be listened to by the other people. Once you express them, people would start to say, oh yes, I share the same view and I feel the same way. That is how it happens. If you are able to speak out with the guts and courage, what you have in the bottom of the heart to the other people is very important. Yes, thank you. I was listening very attentively to your comment, placing in the shoes of myself. And it requires a lot of guts to try to click on the screen if we are going to send my own message. That requires a lot of courage. And I hope I will do the same. Thank you very much for giving me such guts and courage. Thank you. The third question on my part is about the definition of peace. For myself, I came to Hiroshima to learn about peace, and I have learned and experienced many things. In the beginning, I defined peace being the state without war. But if there is a society with poverty or suicide, can you call it a peaceful world or peaceful society? Can you call the state peaceful if only the human beings are happy? There has to be the harmony with the other organism so that everybody on this earth would be able to feel happy. That is called a peace. In your lecture, you said you would be able to come to closer to the state of peace. How do you view and define peace? This is a very deep question. It's very difficult to make the definition of what peace is. For example, there's the discrimination. Still, there are all kinds of discriminations in the society. I read the book, and it says a doctor was doing some domestic works, and he cut his hand and hospitalized and waiting for the turn in the queue, and he got to be operated and moved to the room of the hospital. Sometime later, medical doctor came. So this doctor who cut his hand was also the medical doctor from the same hospital. Doctor so-and-so, oh, you should have told me that you are the colleagues working in the same hospital. One doctor said, So instead of try to degrade the other people or despise the other people, if you find somebody who are coming closer to you, you try to pay the respect and do something special for them. That is the discrimination. That's very difficult. So sometimes you do this out of your favor and out of your love, and that tends to broaden this difference, and this gap is broadened. And if such a level is broadened, that would create the state of war. That's a very difficult issue. So by the end of the day, you have to have the imagination. When it comes to the definition of peace, nobody should be damaged or nobody should feel very bad. In the natural conditions, suppose on the savannah, they are fighting between the different types of the animals. So there is always inequality, even amongst the animals. There is a lucky animal and unlucky animal. And if such a luck or the fortune is defined and fixed, and if one party continues to lose because of such discrimination, even if you are born, even if it's not the perfect form of inequality, if you can use your imagination, your feelings should be fully understood to come to the state of peace.
I may sound quite idealistic, but as much as possible, we should get closer to the kind of state. And the pursuit of peace requires comprehensive views, which include economics and the environment. Otherwise, we cannot find a way to fill the gap that naturally generate. I hope this answers your question. Thank you very much. Your response is quite interesting. Imagination, I believe, is quite important. In Japan, although we live in different regions, we may have some conflicts. But when we go abroad, whenever we meet another Japanese, we tend to get along because we are Japanese. This may apply to among Asians, among Europeans, or among Muslims, among Christians. And if our imagination brings us to the level of a citizen on the planet, then we may find a way to realize peace. Yes, what you said is quite important. When you're a child, you always think about the aliens with aliens, vis-a-vis aliens, the humanity on the earth can unite, but that requires enemies. Why can't we utilize imagination so that we can develop the sense of solidarity among all people in the planet? I hope this will be achieved. Thank you very much. I was interested in this question, and I thought that I learned a lot from your response. For me, because of the pandemic, in this society with pandemic, I wonder whether people do feel the peace, and what is the meaning of peace when we suffer from pandemic so much. And as Mr. Tamesu and Mr. Sugano mentioned, the current society, well, we prefer the relationship with any people in the world, on the planet, rather than trying to limit my relationship with those close to us. There is a book titled Return from Outer Space, written by the Takashi Tachibana. This is about the astronauts when they returned from space, what happened to them. And they had different lives afterwards. Some became depressed, and some became business people, and some became religious person. And many of them said that the national borders are virtual because from outer space, they could not see any national borders on the Earth. It's impossible to bring 7 billion people all at once into space. But because of intuition, we have to realize that we may be bound by virtual concepts. It's true that once returned from space, we may get involved in the day-to-day activity in the current society, but it's important. I recommend you to read the book, although it's not directly related to peace. I'm interested in space myself, so I would like to read the book. Thank you. Next, Kazuma, do you think that we have time for one more question? Yes, so next question. This is a seminar meeting on the August 6th, so I have a question about the nuclear disarmament. This is the A-bomb day. Many people became the victim, and those who know the horror of nuclear weapons would say that we don't need those weapons anymore. I understand that your grandmother was the Hibakusha, Mr. Tamese. And for the nuclear disarmament, what do you think you can do specifically? Nuclear weapons, nuclear disarmament is quite important. I support it. I sincerely hope that all the nuclear weapons would be abolished. But the power balance and the security is the key. Nuclear weapon states have strong negotiating power because they have nuclear weapons ready for attack. And that's quite effective to bring counterparts to the negotiating table. That's the reality. So when we think about the security of states, the nuclear weapons are advantageous in terms of getting the negotiating advantage. And usual type of negotiation would find it difficult to deal with the issue of nuclear weapons. Of course, the realists say that that kind of negotiations is difficult for nuclear weapons. But I would say that still we have to advocate ideals, appeal for ideals. And Hiroshima is a city, one of the few cities where it's quite acceptable to appeal the ideal. So we should continue to appeal the nuclear abolition. But specifically, what should we do? Nuclear disarmament, if that's the only agenda on the negotiation, thinking about the game theory, we would see stalemate, meaning we have to try to use many different approaches. While having those kind of negotiation on nuclear weapons, we have to try to establish a different kind of the networks, exchanges in culture, in sports. We have to maintain good the exchanges. And we should find a way to
ミズムだと思うんですけど、なんかがずれたときに、
to see some shift in the dynamism of the power balance or at the negotiation, we should be able to find an opportunity. Directly pursuing this issue is quite difficult, but still, we should advocate ideals. We have to continue dialogue, and we need to surround this pursuit for the nuclear weapon abolition with different kinds of exchanges and networking. I'm sorry, I don't have any clear answer. Deliberation, discussion, direct negotiation need to be supported by different kinds of relationship and networking so that we can get closer to disarmament. Thank you very much. Meaning that we have to try to use different ways, approaches. I completely agree. Nuclear weapons states amongst themselves. The citizens of those countries are enjoying good relationship at the Olympic Games. And some are communicating from the field of arts. And the youth are trying to see the Congress members trying to find a way to get closer to the objective through politics. Thank you.
では、質問時間に移りたいと思います。で、ユナイトの皆さん、順番に質問の読み上げをお願いいたします。
So let us have a Q&A session. UNITAR members, would you please raise the questions? And so this is a question for definition of the peace. Each and every individual need to think about the definition of peace, but today, on the surface, Japan is known to be peaceful, and many people think that way and not thinking peace deep enough. So if each and every young people think the definition of peace, what kind of process do we need? Well, thank you very much. It is truly a wonderful question. Bhutan, Nepal, Laos, Sri Lanka, and Cambodia, I visit them quite often. And USA, a leadership program, I take part in it. And but young people participated in, closer to my age. Japanese young people, I would say, they are good people, well-behaved people. However, when it comes to strategic response, if there's something risky or dangerous thing, that imagination is lacking among Japanese people because Japan is so peaceful. So the best process in this situation is that you have an experience to live in the countries other than Japan. And because if you go to a cafe in Japan, you just put your belongings there and then purchase coffee. You wouldn't be able to do that in overseas because your belongings are going to be taken away. So this extraordinary situation in Japan should be well understood. And when it comes to the peace in Japan, maybe to some extent, people have an indifference toward what's going on in the world. So when it comes to the refugees, when it comes to their response to the people from overseas, maybe the way we act are not so peaceful to them. So to have or to see things which were not so aware, and then actually physical experience, I think would be helpful. And I recommend people to go outside Japan and live there. Of course, in Japan, there are some tough situations domestically, but there should be some opportunity to be able to actually get the hands-on experience. So somehow in the future, when the school students get the excursion, I think they should go to the places where they feel issues and problems of the society, and then people start to think about what the peace is all about. Thank you very much for your question and answer. The next question, please. Next question. In your presentation, you talk about the victims and those who attack. But when it comes to the history, always there was a biased feeling. If we learn about the history, the event in the history, sometimes we get a biased view. At that point in time, objectively, in order for us to have a judgment with not subjective but objective views, what kind of process do we need to go through? Thank you very much for your question. Again, this is a tough thing, but very important. You have to do something right, of course. Needless to say, that's the premise, but the underlying important points, that is that we are deciding what is right or what is wrong. It is not that there is something called right or wrong. We are making that decision. In savannah, meat-eating animals, eating the herb-eating animals, and you feel sorry about it. Or that tiny the deer is attacked by the group of huge animals, and you feel so sorry. We feel sorry about that, but that itself is not something which is detrimentally bad, because the event is happening. There is no such thing as right or wrong. Our value, the sense of our value determines whatever the event being good or bad. So there are so many different senses of values, and we have an agreement and say that this is valuable. And with that norm, we create a society that we have here today. So when it comes to the human rights obtained by each and every individual, they should be so important. And we decided that this is the human right. After trials and errors, we found what is called the human right. We made that decision. So it is a subtlety here. There is no such thing as that good or bad, but we decided what is good and what is bad. And based upon that, we take a view of things. So that's something that I would like to emphasize first. And on top of that, I talked about who are attacking, who are being the victim. Let's say those are criminals, the people. If you take a look at their lives, in the early lives, when they are the child, they have this experience of being victim. They maybe received a child abuse experiences, and that will be extended to others, and then that will expand all the way to the society. So this relationship, being the attacker, being the victims, it is two sides of the same coin. So if you take a look at one piece, the scene, you are the victim, but if you are to look at another, the aspect, all of a sudden the person is being also who are attacking. So this kind of thing, by learning the history and on the other hand, the right and wrong, there's no such things, but recognizing that we are the one creating the judgment, what is right and what is wrong. So then the most important thing is to find the process of forgiving. I'm sorry, there's no definitive conclusion here. I'm sorry about this, but I have to say that the so-called clear justice or clear right doing, there is no such thing, completely right thing. there's no such things. But under these circumstances, and trying to execute the imagination so that you are not behind, leaving anybody behind, and but as an obligation, you have to know what's going on in the society. But if you understand the total picture, it's confusing because you start to see right and wrong, the victims and attackers, and realizing that whatever that we do have both sides, right, wrong, good, and bad. But with that notion, we have to somehow come up with a decision to do good. Thank you very much for your reply. First question and the second question. Well, I started to see something entirely new. I live in Japan, and the right livelihood here in Japan. Try not to see things that I don't want to see and then feel the society is peace. This is something I found for the first time. So within this process of livelihood, what is really going on with the fresh viewpoints? I would like to see that again. And thank you very much that encouragement, Tamesue-san. Thank you very much, Tamesue-san, for responding to the questions. Those listeners, thank you very much raising many questions. In the later the section, we're going to set the Q&A session, so please actively give us the questions. This concludes the first section. Okay.
さん、ありがとうございました。
はい、ありがとうございました。はい。素晴らしい。
Thank you very much, Mr. Tamesue. My pleasure. Wonderful chairmanship. Thank you very much. And I'm going to say goodbye to you. Thank you. Now then, let us move on to the section 2. In this section, we would like to hear the presentation by 4 groups. And we will also entertain the questions later. 5 minutes presentation, but please identify to whom you are addressing your question. First speakers are Hiroshima, Nagasaki Peace Messengers. Mr. Kusunoki and Ms. Okuma, please. I am 23rd Hiroshima Nagasaki Peace Messengers. I am Yuka Okuma, born and raised in Nagasaki. I am from Hiroshima, going to Shudo High School, the 3rd year. From Okuma, I would like to make the presentation together with her on what we do. Can you all see the slides? I would like to make the presentation on what we do in peace messenger activities. Some of the main activities, one of which is 10,000 high school student signature campaign. This is the number of the signature we have collected from 2001 through 2019, 2,1,235 signatures. Not only Hiroshima and Nagasaki, throughout Japan, we have collected the signatures to create the peace and the total elimination of nuclear weapons. And we are the 23rd generation. Originally, we were supposed to visit Geneva, Switzerland, to visit the EU headquarters in United Nations to deliver the signatures to United Nations. Other than that, we had the occasion to listen to the discussions in CD in Geneva, and our predecessors were given the opportunities to make the speech in front of them. And also, the peace messengers were dispatched to Norway to appeal to the members of Nobel Prize Commission and had the discussion with the counterparts in high schools. Those are the visits to South Korea and also to Hawaii. Each one of the peace messenger was visiting different places with the very clear-cut purposes for the total abolition of the nuclear weapons and to create the peace in the world. This illustrates from the first generation visiting United Nations. Last year, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the signature activities, that was the main line of our activities, was rather difficult. But there were fewer COVID-19 patients. In that cases, we tried to wear the mask and get the signature. On the right-hand side, there was the web session to get the signatures through online communication. And also, in order to disseminate TPNW, which came into effect in January, we were engaged in the various activities through the video clip. In front of the elementary school students or visiting the auditorium in the communities, we made the delivery of the lectures on Hiroshima. We and our predecessors' activities were well appreciated, and we became a candidate for the Nobel Prize, Peace Prize. Our efforts are humble but not powerless. That is our slogan. I hope we will be able to keep this in our mind to continue our activities. Thank you very much. Wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. Next is 50 centimeters. Ms. Uchino, please. Students group. I am the representative. I'm the second year in high school. Our association is called 50 centimeters. Let's share the slide. Our philosophy, as 50 centimeters shows, through the SDGs, a group of the students who want to change the world from our radius 50 centimeters, be it the education or the climate change, we are interested in implementing SDGs. This is the fourth year. From the western and eastern part of Japan, we do have the gathering as well as the once a month online meeting. Our activities are also put on the articles of the newspaper on TV. All of a sudden, I would like to ask a question. What is your image of SDGs? People say the words ethical or sustainable seems to be used by smart aleck. It is what companies work on for many making money. Superficially, you may feel so, but at the bottom, there are so many impending issues in SDGs. For example, planetary boundary, which shows the limitation of the Earth, and many of them have come to the very risky area. That has to be well appreciated to put it in actions by 50 centimeters. So you still feel this way. SDG's aim is too rough for me to understand. That's not something we can handle. Maybe it's very difficult to give the direct impact. But if we are able to place ourselves in the shoes of the others individually, one by one, we would be able to change the atmosphere in the society and make the right judgment, thus can contribute to the transformation of the politics. This is going to be the first stage. Each one of us need to change. In 50 centimeters, we will continue activities so that the young people can be familiar with the social problems, sending the essence of this problem, not just superficially. Each member, there are so many things we are interested in. We hope we'll be able to learn in the very diverse areas. For example, we are approaching in those different areas. Please take a look at this slogan. How was it? As you have seen, I would like to pick up some of the salient activities. Future Transformation Conference. This is the first web online conference. If we want to realize SDGs, we need to step further. And the first step is necessary through the discussion, presentations, and workshops, not only for the members, but also for the other people. We have made a promotion for zero waste activities 3 times a week through Instagram and Facebook. Through the various platforms, we are sending a message. For example, SDGs, is it suspicious? We try to touch the essence of SDGs. And some of the sex education, it is changing because we are able to send the voices of high school students. Those can appeal to the other adults. So we hope we'll be able to have the new connection. Some of the articles include A-bombing. Out of all the articles, I have written a movie, Hiroshima. 7 years after the end of the war, Hibakusha appeared in this movie. 2 years ago, I have seen this movie and I shed tears because it was so realistic. And I started to have stronger feelings after seeing this movie. And I am so much grateful that today's opportunity was given. I hope everybody is able to be involved in SDGs implementation. I will continue my activities. I would like to get your support. Revolutionize from radius 50 centimeters. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Wonderful, Uchino-san. Thank you.
Next, representing Youth for Disarmament, Crystal, please.
Thank you so much for being here and for inviting me to contribute to this discussion and conversation. So I will now be sharing my slides. Please let me know once you see them. Okay, are you able to see my slides? Yes, perfect. So
まだ
today
見え
I'll
て
be
ないです。あ、
talking
今見えました。
about youth engagement through the Youth for Disarmament Initiative and the Youth Champions for Disarmament program. So both of these programs or initiatives strive to engage, educate, and empower youth. And this stems from the belief that youth are the change makers of tomorrow, and they are the ultimate force of change. So a bit about myself. Of course, I am one of 10 UN Youth Champions for Disarmament. And this is a program that was launched by the UN Office for Disarmament Affairs in 2019. And my personal favorite SDG is SDG 16, which is peace, justice, and strong institutions. Because first of all, I am pursuing a master's in peace and conflict studies with a concentration on international peace development, but also because I believe that in order to achieve the SDGs, we need peace, because without peace, any attempt that we have at development will never be sustainable or will never live in perpetuity. So we need peace in order to build strong foundations for the achievement of all other SDGs. And this is why disarmament is so critical. Now, disarmament education, this has gotten more focus in the past couple of years, specifically in 2018, when the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres launched his agenda for disarmament, which is titled Securing Our Common Future. And after he launched this agenda, the Office for Disarmament Affairs really committed itself to partner with other entities and organizations to further disarmament education and to establish a platform for the engagement of youth. Why youth? Well, there are several reasons. First of all, according to the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, there are currently more than 1.2 billion youth in the world, and this is based on numbers from 2019, so we can only assume that that number has grown since then. And youth are aged between 15 and 24, and this corresponds to 16% of the global population, which is a very sizable number. Youth are also very dynamic and creative, and they bring a fresh perspective to disarmament and disarmament-related initiatives. And this was something that was echoed by our speaker at the beginning of the session. Also, I believe that as youth, since we have inherited or are inheriting the problems of our current world or planet, it is only fitting that we get the right to help solve those challenges. Now, for the Youth for Disarmament Initiative, it's a youth outreach initiative that strives to engage youth that are living in geographically diverse areas and countries to learn more about international peace and security, the work of the UN, and to actively contribute to disarmament. It was established in 2019 by the UN Office for Disarmament Affairs, and that was the same year that the UN General Assembly adopted the resolution on youth disarmament and non-proliferation. And through this initiative, the Office of Disarmament Affairs and other entities strive to provide youth with resources, projects, and activities to educate them, to empower them, and to allow them to be meaningful actors contributing to disarmament. The Youth Champions for Disarmament program, of which I am a part of, is actually part of the Youth for Disarmament Initiative. So it falls underneath it. The goal was to select 10 young individuals between 18 and 24 among 6,515 applicants from different areas and countries around the world. And so this program really empowered us and allowed us to use our diverse talents in order to achieve international peace and security. So we were given training on disarmament, mentorship, and we had the opportunity to represent youth in different dialogues and events, such as our event today. And we are currently working on developing and implementing different projects related to disarmament in our communities. These initiatives are both based on the 3Ps model. So participation, facilitating opportunities for youth, which come from different backgrounds, expertise, to be involved in disarmament. perspectives, which means really making the perspectives of youth heard on key topics, giving them that space to express themselves, to be innovative and creative, and to provide them with education related to disarmament and partnerships. So that falls in line with SDG 17, and it's working for and with the youth in believing that they are change makers and allowing them to see linkages between disarmament and other fields. Now, some of my intervention and other youth champions interventions. So today we have our current event. I was also a speaker at the launching of the World Without Landmines campaign, which was with the Peace Jam Foundation. I was also a speaker at the 2021 Critical Issues Forum that was organized by the James Modern Center for Non-Proliferation Studies at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies in Monterey. And besides speaking, we also get other opportunities. For instance, I was a co-moderator for the high-level side event for BMS 7. So it was a joint double anniversary between UNODC and UNODA. We were also speakers within the What If Spastera Youth Video Challenge launch. And I had the honor of organizing a virtual Hibakusha testimony underneath the Peace Boat project called Every Second Counts for the Survivors. So Peace Boat has the goal of making Hibakusha heard all over the world. And by November of this year, they hope to have done more than 100 virtual testimonies. And I was actually so touched by the stories of the Hibakusha from my event and from listening to other testimonies they gave that I joined Peace Boat US as an intern, and I continue now as a volunteer with them. And I will be speaking at their Peace Festival later on in the day in a couple of hours. Here I am talking more about my experience in hosting the Every Second Counts for the Survivors event at my campus. And this was actually broadcasted by NHK. And here we are graduating from the Youth Champions for Disarmament program. As you can see, Ms. Uzumi Nakamitsu, the under SG for Disarmament Affairs, was with us in the meeting. And overall, I think this was such a big honor, responsibility, and privilege to be part of the Youth Champions for Disarmament. I have personally grown, and I have grown alongside other youth who are equally passionate about disarmament. And I'm really grateful to the opportunities to learn more and to give back to my communities. So current Youth for Disarmament opportunities include the What If Spastera Youth Video Challenge, and the deadline for this was extended till August 12th. And the Step Up for Disarmament Youth campaign, which will be happening at the end of the month. And I just want to thank everybody for being here today. If you'd like more information about youth engagement, about the Youth for Disarmament Initiative, the Youth Champions for Disarmament, please make sure to visit our website and to follow us on Instagram. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Christelle, for your presentation. And next, Mr. Ochiai of SDGs Way. Thank you for kind introduction. I am Ochiai from SDGs Y, Koichiro Ochiai. I would like to introduce myself. Then I would like to talk about SDGs Y and its activity. I would like to start sharing my slides. I am from a student organization named SDGs Y. First of all, please allow me to talk about myself. This is my recent picture. I am in my favorite car. My name is Koichiro Ochiai. I belong to SDGs Y. And the Think the Earth, I am an intern, and I'm learning about SDG at Keio University. What is this organization, SDGs Y? Why? Sustainable Development Goals. SWI means it's an abbreviation of shift our world by the youth. Meaning we millennium youth are ready to change the society in a better way for ourselves and for everybody in the society. The logo of our organization is made up of S, W, and Y. Y, youth, is like a boat. And on the boat, you see W, the world. And you can see a flag, S of SDGs. The youth is bringing the SDG future into the world. And what are our specific activities? Because of the pandemic, the offline activity is difficult, but earlier this year, at the Kamakura City of Kanagawa Prefecture, there was a conference for the promotion of SDGs, aiming at the elementary school students and the junior high school students as members. Together with them, in Kamakura City, we discussed what Kamakura City can do for SDG. Kamakura City has the mountains and the ocean and different factors. And in what way Kamakura City can improve itself has been discussed together with the mayor of the Kamakura City and elementary school students and the junior high school students. During Japan SDG Action Festival, we attended and gave a lecture. So our activities are quite diverse. So what we are doing is we, the youth, get together, and not only the youth, but also people in different generations should have intergenerational discussion. So in order to achieve SDGs, we hope to offer support. Those who are interested in the developing careers in international organization, we would like to offer them space for discussion and hope that the youth voices will be delivered to the decision-making organizations. I represent SDGs SY today. My name is Ko Ichiro, and the Chinese character for my name of means the airplane or the navigation. I know that my parents wanted me to navigate in the world. It's been a great pleasure and honor for me to be here because we have been able to have a very comprehensive view about the world. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Ochiai. So we were able to hear the activities of different organizations. Thank you very much. And we were able to see that each organization and each one of you have a strong passion. And young people may have different interests, but if we have a bigger, significant objectives, you are quite common in sharing the same big objectives.
And so now, let us have the panel discussion for this theme, nuclear weapons abolition and sustainable future. Youth movement for nuclear disarmament. There are 2 questions and we'd like to spend 15 minutes for each question. First of all, the question is, please tell us about your impressions, including achievements and feelings and limitations you have felt through your activities so far. So first of all, the high school peace messengers, would you please respond? Kusunoki, myself, I would like to respond. So achievements in our activities. So we, the peace messengers, as I have mentioned in my presentation, the nuclear abolition, basically we do the activities of collecting signatures. And you know that there are so many the nuclear weapons everywhere in the world. They are not abolished at all. And 2021, the January, there is a TPNW went into effect. And so gradually, there is a process moving forward for the abolishment of the nuclear weapons. And so at the nuclear, the conferences, our people made a speech, and then for sure we have taken part in those activities. In Hiroshima, we do have activities of collecting signatures in a peace park, memorial park. Not only people from Hiroshima, but there are people, the tourists from Tokyo. And of course, some time ago, we have received many people from all over the world gave their signatures. They gave us the word of encouragement, and we discussed about atomic bombs. So there are a lot of dialogues generated. And many people wanted to know what are the nuclear weapons. And with that question, they visited Hiroshima. So these are the things that I felt. Knowing that many people are interested in Hiroshima, day to day, I feel that they visit Hiroshima with that much interest. Now, when it comes to the limitation, not just our activities, but we often talk about the hibakusha getting aged. And probably we are the last generation to be able to hear directly from hibakusha. Maybe that's the truth. And so I often hear the voices of hibakusha to listen their voices directly. It's completely different from just learning from the textbook. Hibakusha, if they pass away, how are we going to take over their stories and memories? Hiroshima Prefecture, Hiroshima City, of course, they are doing a lot of activities. Akai-san also talked about she drew the picture to try to convey the message. Some use musical instruments. Well, I do that through my lectures. So the voices of Hikabakusha, the history of Hiroshima, are being communicated, and the effort should be continued. Of course, this is a challenge, but with our new power, we would like to come over the achievements, and so that the Hiroshima's atomic bomb experience will be heard by the next generation. Thank you very much. So, Uchino-san, please. Okuma-san, please. Do you have any comments? Since we are high school students, just because we are the high school students, we can do some things. But when it comes to the nuclear abolition, hibakusha, the second generation people, their roles have been so significant. And what we can do as a high school student, so what kind of activities are requested or pursued? A lot of struggle that we feel, not so much as limitations, but we often think about that we truly struggle that aspect. Thank you very much for asking this question. Well, thank you very much. How about Uchino-san, please? In our activities, what are the achievements? Well, we were able to have a communication with so many different people. On the SNS, we receive comments from various people and other organizations or even companies who share the same view raise their hands to support us. So it is great experience that made me very happy. And also my old friends from high school, junior high school or primary school, they started to express their interest, which made me very happy. Those who did not have an interest in SDGs, because of us dispatching the messages, that impacted them and they became interested. When it comes to the limitations, those old friends of mine, they came to understand the activities of 50 centimeters, but other people, when it comes to the SDGs or social issues, very difficult to approach to the people who I have not known in my life. So, for example, online events, those people who respond to our homepage, they do have an interest already for SDGs and social issues, and they are supporting our activities. But if someone who have nothing to do with me before and they come in touch with the 50 centimeters, not so much motivated to know more about it. So that's a challenge that I have. And also, if we can contribute to change the mindset of many people, individuals' awareness may change, and their behavior may change, and then the world will change. There is a certain flow, but it all starts from the individual change. So this process, this flow, is still difficult to achieve because we have a conventional social system. It is quite difficult for us to change. And so we do have a more closer goal to us to change the mindset first. But how that will lead to finally change the world is still a very difficult task. Thank you very much, Ishino-san, for sharing your views. Let us move on to the Crystal-san. Would you please? Crystal, please.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. So on the achievement side, honestly, the more that I attend events and the more that I speak with different groups, be it groups comprised of youth or just people in general, or country representatives or people who are in positions of power when it comes to disarmament, I am filled with hope because I see that they are starting to take this seriously and more seriously. And I feel that also the TPNW and its entry into force represent a great step forward in our efforts towards disarmament. I also think that projects like Peace Boats, Every Second Counts for the refugees, so making the stories of the Hibakusha heard worldwide, is helping youth and all attendees or participants in these events really realize and acknowledge how terrible nuclear weapons are and the damaging impact that they have. And that damaging impact, as we know, is long lasting. So it wasn't just at the moment of the explosion. It keeps on having a traumatic effect even afterwards, and health consequences and many more elements. So youth who sometimes are not, exposed to disarmament learning in their courses start to realize what these weapons are and how dangerous they are, and the need for disarmament in the world. There are, of course, some limitations to the work, particularly, now that we live in a COVID pandemic era, a lot of important high-level meetings have been rescheduled over the past 2 years. All of our events have shifted to an online format, which creates some problems because you are not able to access everybody everywhere. So there are a lot of people that still remain without internet access, so you cannot really get that information out to them in the virtual world. Also, whenever you are speaking to a group or having testimonies to a group, usually it's more impactful when it's in person. You kind of have that feeling and that shared moment, which is even more impactful than a virtual testimony or virtual presence. But we are all really trying the best that we can. And again, I'm very hopeful with more and more people acknowledging the importance of disarmament in general, and with more people learning about the SDGs and seeing linkages to disarmament. So disarmament might not be one of the SDGs, but that is because it is at the heart and core of the UN Charter. So implicitly, it is at the heart of all other SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Crystal. Next, Ochiai-san, please. Thank you very much for your opinions. Allow me to introduce what I have so far felt in our activities. Closer to me, we act upon and we try to walk with our feet and act on the various programs. There are things you are not able to understand only on the web and online communication. One example is when I was the first year of high school, I went to Malaysia, Borneo Island, and there are so many things I came to realize, things which cannot be understood or learned on online. Only after you are able to move your legs, you would be able to appreciate those things. And also some limitations. I have been doing this since the first year of high school. I came to realize I come across with the people in the companies and they said, we would like to hear the voices of the young people, they said. So the dialogue with the young people end as the objective of the goal. I'm wondering whether our opinions are well reflected in their decision-making process in the companies. I'm wondering whether the young peoples are well appreciated with the opinions. So what I feel is effective use of our opinions, effective use of input from the young people, that is rather questionable. That's one of the limitations I feel. Thank you very much, Ochiai-san. So from the different perspective, thank you very much for the lively discussion. I hope you will be able to keep this aspiration. And the next is the enthusiasm and advice you have for the young colleagues. Those can be learned by your colleagues, young people. What's your enthusiasm for your future activities? Now, from the young messengers, allow me to touch upon this second point. Our group is the high school students group. So we can only be engaged in those activities for 3 years. We are the third year in high school, and we are not succeeding our activities and learnings to the younger ones. 24th Peace Messengers have been already selected. And they do share the very strong aspiration to eliminate the nuclear weapons, and we do share the same ambitions. We hope we will be able to make the connection from one generation to the next generation to continue to send our message through the various generations of high school peace messengers as one of the members of getting the signature of 10,000 people, we might feel that our activities may end when I graduate from the high school, but never such aspiration will be ended even after the graduation of high school, as has been kept for the past 20 years by our predecessors. We shall continue to learn and engage in our activities even after graduation. And also to our colleagues, young people, the message, I would say, please make a wonderful imagination. 8.6, 8.9, and also nuclear weapons usages. This is something which are happening in the backyard of yours. This is not the incidents which took place only in the past, but they are all connected with today. As long as there is the nuclear weapons, you cannot just deny the possibility of the use of such nuclear weapons. What is the significance of that? And please imagine and think, in order to make our society better, what are the things you need to do? Not a big thing. For example, to have the discussion amongst the family members about the nuclear weapons or together with your friends. In order for us to live in the future, we can transform our future. Let us act on that. Our voices can be heard. And we hope that if possible, we would be able to accomplish our objective as the peace messengers. We think we'll be able to make the very good one step further. That is the message. Thank you very much. Sunoki-san, do you have any additional comments? As a high school student from Hiroshima, I would like to share one view. I want you to be interested in those kind of events, and please come to Hiroshima directly. Please visit Hiroshima. We talk about peace activities, be it getting the signature or creating the groups, sending the message through SNS. That is not the only way of achieving peace. For example, to your friends, just let them know that you have visited Hiroshima and what you felt when you went to Hiroshima. And to your colleagues, young people, when you become older and get married and have a child, please be sure to send your feelings, how you felt in Hiroshima, or maybe to your granddaughters and sons. I hope you will be able to share your experiences in Hiroshima. We sincerely hope that we would be able to increase the number of such people through the lectures and the various events. Thank you. Thank you. Uchino-san, please. For us, in 50 centimeters, as I have shown you in video clip of our activities, not only the people who have the high level of consciousness, we would like everybody to implement SDGs. That is my strong wish. We hope we'll be able to put more power to our activities. Sending the message through SNS, having the events, that is not all. You can only recruit the people who are interested in this all the way in order to increase the newcomers. For example, what about these cases to the junior high school students? You can have fun and you will be able to find out what's going on in the society. You can appeal to the newcomers and as many audience as possible. And also, to our colleagues and young people, what I would like to communicate is people talk about the SDGs and social issues. They are taken up at school or newspapers. And in recent years, people talk about SDGs on media, and some people think they are getting tired and sick and tired of listening to SDGs. But if you try to understand SDGs very ambiguously, you might think this is rather awkward and very difficult to start. But there are so many different social issues, and they are all connected, intertwined. So the thing you are interested in might be linked strongly with the social problem. So not just you need to read the newspaper, you need to listen to the news. If you have one slight interest, please consult them on on social media, or having the discussion with your friends. Then you will be able to change your perspectives. Please do not consider that this is obligatory, or if you can just have your interest and try to fulfill your interest first. I think this is something I would like to recommend. Thank you very much, Crystal. You have the floor, please.
Thank you so much. So in terms of motivation and future prospects, again, we've been youth champions for disarmament for over a year now, and we have grown so much in our journey about learning regarding the SDGs and disarmament. And we've all really been passionate about the SDGs for several years now and working towards achieving them. We have been engaged in several opportunities or events, speaking out about disarmament, engaging in different actions related to disarmament. And as I mentioned, we are currently, as youth champions, developing our own projects related to disarmament and nuclear disarmament. And we will be implementing these in our communities, but also we are trying to have our efforts go beyond the geographical lines of our countries. So our efforts are really aimed at our region and at the world, more generally speaking. It's, as Kosei mentioned, each one of us, from the moment that we become aware of the need for disarmament and the moment that we start seeing how dangerous weapons can be, particularly nuclear weapons, we have a responsibility to enlighten those around us, starting with our own families, our friends, and then going out more into the community. We are all youth on this panel, and I do acknowledge that sometimes being part of the youth, it can be difficult to get our voices out, particularly in some countries, maybe more than others, where youth are not really heard or listened to. However, this is gradually changing, and so our voices are being more and more heard. And even if maybe sometimes we cannot impact policy at the highest level in our governments, we can make changes around us and at the community level. So as youth, we can take out small and effective actions. So for example, we can educate ourselves on disarmament. We can spread information about it around us. We can create petitions and ask people to sign them. We can each try to organize a virtual hibakusha testimony. We can start a club on disarmament. So there are a lot of initiatives. As a peace builder myself, the advice that I would give to youth or to anybody who would like to be engaged in the field of disarmament and encouraging people, to carry out disarmament efforts is to really first understand disarmament, understand nuclear weapons, understand the danger that they pose, and then map out your allies that you have around you. You have more people around you or allies than you think you have. So just try to see who is your network, who are the people you know, what fields do they work in, what might the linkages be between their fields and disarmament, and carry out dialogues, discussions, and conversations. And then this is how you start building up actions for disarmament. You start very small, and then that community of people who gather around you grows as time passes by, and as they see your passion and motivation for it, and as they start hearing the facts. I do believe, that small actions added up together can really lead to change. And this is really the way that youth have been carrying out these initiatives. And, youth are very creative. Now we have access to the internet and other forms of social media. So let's really utilize all of these tools to get our voices out and heard into the public. Thank you so much.
クリステさん、ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much, Crystal. And can I ask Ochiai-san?
はい、ありがとうございます。これから
Thank you very much. My message to fellow youth and what we are going to do from now on. My strongest message is that the society wants to get 100%, but we youth don't need to be 100% perfect. That means in the society, in the world, toward the achievement of SDGs, many different people are making great efforts. And trying to achieve those objectives is quite valuable, and we have to continue it. But this does not mean that we need to be 100% perfect. People might say to you, you are thinking about SDGs, so you should not buy a pet bottle, or you should always use clean energy, so you must be perfect because you are interested in SDG. So you might be asked to be perfect in terms of SDG, but I say I don't think so. This is such a big issue. We need collaboration by all of us. And trying to be perfect, it's better to make small achievement, progress day by day. Tomorrow should be better than today. And SDGs achievement, it does not mean that you have to change every aspect of your life. We need to change something small today so that tomorrow is a bit different from today. Taking the first step is quite important. Of course, we want to achieve 100%, but it doesn't mean that everybody needs to be 100%, but it's important for everybody to make efforts to change. Thank you very much, Ochiai-san. Thank you very much. I would like to thank all the panelists for a very strong, encouraging message. Each one has a different perspective, but I think we share the same passion. And I hope that the audience will find a way to utilize the advice you have received from the panelists. Now it's time for Q&A. And we would like to take up the questions. Can I ask Unite to read the questions we have received? I have a question to Uchino and also another question to Ochiai. In order to achieve SDG, we have only 8 years left and time is running out. What is the first goal that you want to take up among 17 goals? Uchino-san, please. 50 centimeters is interested in different fields. Each member has a different interests. So it's quite difficult to say anything about the 50 centimeters. So this is my personal view. I'm quite interested in education. I go to my regular school and the cram schools, and I see the gap in education at school, between school and the cram school. Those who cannot attend the cram school may not be able to get enough information to successfully enter into university. And educational gap comes from economic gap. And I want to start something to reduce the gap. What I'm thinking about is the electronic book, reference book. And I want to create a virtual electronic library where the students can read reference books to support their education. That's my personal interest. Thank you. Uchiai-san.
はい、ありがとうございます。
Thank you.
僕が考える最初に達成したい
The first goal I hope to achieve
17
is 17 partnership. Goal 17 partnership is my first choice because the goal 17 is about the partnership among states to achieve the targets. Among 17, this is the only goal with a category. So 17 is a very large and comprehensive target. And between states and among people, a stronger relationship and collaboration is necessary to achieve a partnership. So it's exactly what we are doing today. SDG have connected all of us. Today, among 17 goals, number 17 is what I would like to achieve. Relationship among states are quite important, but at individual level or the intergenerational or partnership or relationship is quite important. So that's why I believe that the number 17 partnership and its achievement is what I would like to pursue first of all. Thank you.
落合さん、ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much, Ochiai-san.
それでは、次の質問に移り
Let's move on to the next question. UNITAR member, would you please raise the next question?
This is a question to Christelle. Here's a question. What process did you take in order for you to think the bombing of Hiroshima as if that was your own issues or an event?
So, Crystal, did you get the question?
No, I did not actually catch it. Could you please repeat it?
Can you hear me?
Crystal, do you hear the person, the UNITE member, just asking you? Or,
Can you hear me?
Crystal-san, can you hear me?
Maybe it's because I have the translation turned on.
One more time, can you hear me?
So because of the interpretation channel choice, maybe?
Yes, if you'd like, I am hearing now the interpretation. So if you could ask me the question or type it in English in the chat box.
今、英語で質問したんだけど、クリステルさん、英語で。
So,
もしじゃあ訳せるんだったら、それ訳してくれたら。
just a moment. They're trying to figure out the way.
Yes, no worries. Please take your time. And apologies about the.
わかりました。クリステルさんに質問です。もう一度すみません。
So this is a question to you, Crystal. In 1945, August 6th, atomic bombing in Hiroshima, what kind of process were there so that you just took this issue as if this is your own problem? What was the process there so that you consider this event as your own event?
Okay, thank you so much for the question. So really, growing up in my country, so I am originally from Lebanon. I'm currently in the US for my master's degree. Growing up, we heard about the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but we had never really heard about them in detail. So they were just taught in passing in our classrooms. And then, during my undergraduate years and after becoming part of the Youth Champions for Disarmament, we started really focusing and learning more about them and understanding. And the more hibakusha testimonies I heard, the more I understood how impactful this was. Now, I know that what I'm going to say next isn't necessarily, linked to nuclear, but a year ago today, on August 4th, we had the Beirut explosion, which was considered one of the biggest 3 or 4 explosions in the world. It was not, again, nuclear, but I saw the hurt that it caused to people. I could have been, there at the time of the explosion. I was supposed actually to go down to Beirut, but I got the call at the very last minute. So I ended up, not going there because I wouldn't have made it on time. And I just got lucky. Otherwise, I would have been potentially one of the victims. So I saw what that explosion did to people. People lost their loved ones. They were some of them were really severely hurt, and others, maybe they were hurt in the moment, but then they had some internal bleeding, and so they passed away like a couple of days afterwards. And the trauma still lingers in the minds of everybody who was there or who heard about it, and it is a deep wound in the heart of my country. So really, again, going back to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I cannot say that the Beirut explosion was similar by any means, because I know that what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that was much bigger. It was A-bombs. The damage was really substantial to infrastructure, to all people. People lost lives, limbs, and it was just disastrous. But I can understand the pain. I can understand the suffering. And I think, not being from Japan, no one can really fully understand what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but we can try our best to educate ourselves and to hear from the survivors. And all that I know and all that we know is that it was an atrocious event and it should never happen again. And states do not have the infrastructure or the capacities or the disaster relief staff to deal with nuclear bombs or anything of the sort. There is no infrastructure in place to deal with the aftermath of it. So we should strive to work more towards nuclear disarmament and all forms of disarmament, because weapons hurt. There is really no peace that comes out of weapons. Thank you.
クリステルさん、ありがとうございました。ご自身の痛みや
Crystal-san, thank you so much. You shared your suffering and pain, your notion, your behavior, your sharing touched our hearts very much. So thank you so much. This was the last question. I'm so sorry that because of the time constraints. I would like to say thank you very much for raising all the questions to us. And now let us go into the summary and closing remarks. In the early section, we had the presentation and discussion with Tamesue-san. We were able to hear his impression. We had the dialogues. And then the second round, we had the panelists of distinguished young people And then we have heard the activities and we got the panel discussion. The purpose of the discussion today is to have young people feel that they are the one to take over the activities of a nuclear disarmament. So what was your impression, young people? Matsui Mayor said at this morning ceremony, actually, it is a hope that the youngsters are trying to do something after learning what was done by the generations in the past. Kamesue-san also talked about the importance of hearing the testimony of the victims. And Akai-san, how was the session for yourself? Thank you very much. The session, I have learned a lot and I was really looking forward to the session. I was there at the ceremony this morning. In the past, I actually thought that was quite a precious the time for me to think about the future. The adults are watching us, the society has watching these events. And at the same time, we look at each other, and in order for us to move forward together, actually we were able to find colleagues here, those of whom we can work together. How the activities are going to be viewed by the society, I think this event has been quite meaningful. I'm so overwhelmed with the good and positive feelings. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Ms. Akai. Finally, I would like to ask Tamesue-san to give us the comments. Tamesue-san, how was the session today for you? Yes, I have been listening to the discussion, panel discussion. I was so impressed because when I was at your age, maybe 100th, I never thought of all these things that you have shared. I am 43 years of age, and I'm sure, of course, this is an issue you need to tackle for long run. The solution will not come overnight. Whatever the events that you see today in the world,
Internet is giving the very great impact on our lives, and we are still perplexed with this situation. And there are divisions in many places, including the United States. Intermediate and social media, how are we going to deal with them? We are still confused, I have to say, especially for my generation. I came across with internet for the first time, but you are born in digital age. Probably you will be able to quickly and easily overcome those digital issues and communication issues. Conversation, dialogue, and understanding each other are very important, regardless of the race or the country. We hope you will be able to give your input. I hope I will be able to catch up with you so that I would not be left behind. Thank you very much for a whole day session. Thank you very much, Mr. Tamesue. For all of us gathered here, to young people, thank you very much for your very enthusiastic advice. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for having joined with us for a long time today. We would like to adjourn our meeting, expressing our appreciation. And thank you indeed very much. Crystal, you were with us since 5 o'clock in the morning. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you.